Hello and welcome back. And continuing my haul of things I picked up while overseas, I've got some new robot builds. Rather than doing them all on their own, I'm just going to throw them all into one video. Saves time for everyone. And I just thought it'd be better to do them both in one video. So on the left, we have robot build 17S, Seawolf, and on the right, robot build 28, Akaden. Now, robot build left, I believe, was done in conjunction with Snail Shell, which has kind of an anime girl figure that was supposed to go along with it, and she has an accessory that would match up. I wasn't really wanting to collect that, so I just got the robot to go along with combining the rest of my robots. So let's go ahead and look at the packaging real quick. As far as the packaging goes, it's the typical run-of-the-mill for Earnestcore Craft, and we have the transparent packaging. We have sort of the color overlay of text on here. On the side, we've got the illustration. This one is lacking the illustration on this side, though. And then on the back, we have the typical full color print, which shows a breakdown of what the mech looks like. This is the weapon that would have combined, but we don't have that because we don't have the anime girl figure. On the back, we just have a picture of the mech. And then going to the side, let's see, we just have more text. So that's pretty much it for the packaging. As usual, I feel like this designer does a really nice job, very clean typography, well designed, well printed, very crisp. It really looks nice done over the clear plastic, so never can fault them. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get these figures out of the packaging and see if they're worthy of our collection. And if you guys weren't aware of this already, these are both recolor figures, but the Seawolf is a bit more of a retool from the original version. But as usual, we have a little baggie of extra pegs and adapters. There is an extra set of hands in here to go along with the little robot guy. We've got a little robot guy, which is pretty cool. We have a robot dog, which folds up into sort of a half ball and will fit in the cockpit. He has a little wire tail, which should work on both of these. However, I've had a hard time getting it to go in there. And rather just, since I'm going to have to transform it anyway, I just went ahead and left it out for you guys. And then we have these two components to sort of make, you know, additional arms to grab on stuff or weapons or whatever you want to create here. And then we have the mech itself, which is a really neat design. It's got this underwater vibe. I like the little canister for the cockpit where you can get the full 360 view for undersea exploration. We have two little wheeled feet here. That's one of the differences in design. And the reason I like that is even though I do like the colors of the previous version better, this is going to add to stability. And that's one challenge that some of these designs have is stability. But we have, you know, movement, ball joint at the ankles. We have bending at the knees. It's not a super great bend because the leg is pretty chunky, but we do get a little bit of a bend. We have a ball joint at the hip. We have rotation at the waist. We have this backpack here that can come off. And what I do like is that this piece here will slide out to really make that connection really complete. Feels a lot more cohesive that way rather than just a part stuck on there with pegs. And then we have shoulder articulation. So we have rotation on this joint. Then we have another joint here for lateral movement. Rotation above the bicep. We have bending at the elbow. Pretty good bend. Rotation at the wrist, which is not a lot, but we have a little bit of rotation. And then we have these four fingers here, each individually jointed. Enough to where it could grip something if you wanted to. Not terrible large amount, but it's enough for some good posing articulation. And then the cockpit here, pop that down, pop that open, and just another point of articulation there. So I think this is pretty cool. A lot of good parts here for making up custom ideas. And so one more thing before we forget, and the other one's going to come with this as well. We also have a set of tools that you have to assemble yourself. They are always included with the sets. And then, of course, this little logo that is also always included. And, of course, we might as well talk about the articulation of these guys as well. So this one transforms, and it kind of flips upside down. We have a decent bit of articulation in the neck because this part is designed to rotate, transform. We have a ball joint here, some joints, some hinges. We have this little design here. It's kind of interesting. Might be a little fragile, so just be careful with that. Then, of course, we have rotation at each shoulder and hip. Then we have each elbow knee joint with some articulation as well. And of course, the tail would be infinite articulation since it is a wire. And over here, we have feet articulation. We have knee movement. I don't want to move this guy too much because it was kind of hard to get to stand. We have ball joints in the hip. No waist. Head seems fixed, but we do have rotating wrists, and these will, of course, change out with an open hand. We have movement at the elbow and ball joints at the shoulders. So now that pretty much covers all of this set. Let's go ahead and get Akaden out of the packaging and see how it stacks up. And here we have Akaden out of the box, and as you can see, there is a huge discrepancy in size, probably as well as parts count. And honestly, I don't know if these guys should be priced as close together as they are. I paid the same price because I actually got them a discount from a small store in Malaysia, but there's a bit more going on with this other mech, and we'll get into some of the stuff that's involved. But the one thing I want to point out first is that this one is actually a pretty fragile one compared to other robot build figures I've had. And even out of the package, we had sort of the bend in the horn here. And so I don't know if there's much I can do since I got it out of a small shop and have no way of reaching them. Worst case scenario, since I have this sort of crease, I thought about maybe just doing a white stripe around the end. Something I've seen, kind of on the antenna or horn of Evangelion, kind of referencing that because we already have some white tampo on here. But visually, this is actually a pretty cool design. I know I was a little bit, I wouldn't say weary of it, but it definitely did not look the same aesthetic as some of the other ones. It had a lot of the hard edges, but there was something very, super robot anime about this compared to how the other ones kind of rooted a little bit more in realism, at least the ones I collected. But this one comes with a lot of stuff. But like I said, this one is more fragile. I'm going to be careful moving around because it has a lot of pointy edges and they're all very thin plastic. So definitely note, be gentle. As usual, just like the other one, we have a bunch of pieces here. And what these are for, they're just various pegs and adapters so that you can do more customization, which is what this entire line is about, swapping parts. We have a different color of the logo and another tool. I already have a bunch of these, so I'm not taking these apart. We have these blades that come in the back, as well as handles that, or I don't know if I'd call them handles, but they could possibly use the handles that attach them to make them into sort of like weapons. We have a couple of nice shields here. So we get the camera to focus. Yeah, there we go. We have a couple nice shields. These actually have some really nice coloring and details on them. I like this. I like to see more of this plastic applied to future designs. We have another piece of red metallic bits here that I'll have to add on. We have some interesting joints here. Just sort of, it's almost like an offset joint where you can have something in there and have it kind of relocated. So this is actually pretty useful for some stuff that we might build. We have a whole variety of hands. We have some open hand claws and a couple variations of holding weapons or holding hands. And why those are important are this massive weapon we've got here, which is almost ridiculous. It's so big. Let's see if I can get this to focus. There we go. Look how massive this is. It just spans both of them. And so you'll actually take out the centerpiece here and you replace it with the bit that has a hand already affixed to it. And of course, all this stuff comes apart. You can see how it kind of is coming apart there. And you can use all these components for your custom builds. This is why I love this line. You make your own mecha. It's like a dream toy for me. It's like the next level of what Mugenbein could have been. But looking closer, aesthetically, this is very cool, very sharp edges, really nice. I might hit up ShowZ store and see if they can get me in touch with them and just see if we can do something about this antenna. Otherwise, like I said, I'll paint it. But it's got some nice sharpness there. It's got all that. Got these nice sharp parts here. Like I said, thin. So try not to let this guy dive or drop. It is fairly stable. Even though the feet aren't terribly big, it is fairly stable. We have loads of articulation. So in here, we have a joint. So you can see this ball joint. Then we have another ball joint on the other side of that. Then we have rotation of the bicep or below the shoulder. We have a elbow joint. And then we have rotation at the wrist. torso. So we have to be careful with this because these pieces could collide. We have a torso joint in there, and we have another one at the waist. And then we have our hip joints, and then we have our knee bend. Would have been nice to see a double joint in there, but that is fine, especially since unless you're using the stand, it's just going to have to be stable or just be held stable. This back flap here can move around, so, you know, just more joints to work with. And then we have a pretty good ankle joint here. And it actually looks like it is a double joint. So we have a ball with a shaft connecting them, so in two ends. So that gives some nice movement to here, considering we have all these extra flared parts we have to move around. So this is a cool design. I really dig it. Let's go ahead and move him back here. But like I said, aesthetically, very different. A lot of similar hard edges, different colors as usual, but still could make some cool mixing and matching. And like I said, we're going to go over just what the key point of this line is. So let's go ahead and just grab a shoulder here. We're going to pull this out. We'll pull one out from both ends. And then we can take this one and work it out. And that will just go in here. I feel like that one waist joint is a little bit loose. We'll take this one out as well. And we'll just pop it in here. And even though these arms I didn't think would work proportionally, I actually don't think they look bad. They are shorter, of course, in relationship to the legs, but they're not terrible. And then we can come back with this one and pop these arms in here. And these, of course, are much longer than what those were. And therein lies the beauty of what is robot build. And it's not just swapping entire limbs. You can dismantle the arms. You could take it off. There's multiple shorter points here that you could take apart. You can take apart the bicep, you can take apart the arm, the hands, and you can break them down into smaller components and really go wild. So say if you wanted to keep these fists, you could put them on these arms, or you could actually take multiple elbow joints and line them up and really extend those, different legs, different knees, feet, heads, cockpits. You have so much versatility in modifying this line. Like even this, we could probably pop this off, pop off the forearm, and we might have to find a different adapter peg, but just to show you quickly. And then we have a blade arm. I mean, it's that easy. And of course, some of these you have to really work. There is a little bit more finessing in getting the joints in. You want to, of course, be delicate because this is an expensive figure, and you don't want to break anything or wear them out. But this is a pretty awesome set. I'm happy with it. I really like the aesthetic. There is a bone color version of this, which looks pretty good, but I think that one doesn't really have a color that goes with a lot of them, but it still could work. It could have some interesting, you know, breaking up the color so it's not just so monochromatic. And this one itself also, the green is fairly unique within it, and so it stands out on its own as well. Before we go, I do want to kind of compare these with the other figures in the line. And here are all the ones I've gotten so far. So here's a comparison across the board of the variety of styles this line produces. And so you're really not hunting for a single superior aesthetic with any of them. You're looking for the interesting parts and connectors. That way you can take them apart and make a whole new mech out of them. I still think out of all these, even though I have wanted the smaller one, this one is probably the least substantial of all of them that I've gotten so far, but it's still a very solid addition to the line. This one was far better than expected. To this date, my favorite one is still Valhalla, which is the red one here on the right. And even though I have my favorites, the reality is each one has an awesome piece to contribute. Like my very first one, the fire ant back here, is still an awesome one, though it is difficult to make it stand because of its interesting leg design. I love the leg design, just doesn't function very well as far as the standing mech goes, which is where stands would come into place with some of these figures. But that said, even out of all these, only one of these so far have come with a stand, and I actually would like to have the option to buy stands separate just for making custom mechs. But anyway, I'm glad to have more in my collection. Let us know in the comments below if these are worthy of your collection. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.